Good morning. This is Bible class, and we are in on Tuesday, and so we are looking at more on David. But you just had a verse quiz, so we are going to be looking at our brand new verses. There's only 2 verses. Okay, so it's First Peter. So at the towards the back of the Bible, if you go to Revelation, you come back a few books. There's Jude, and then 3rd John, 2nd John, 1st John, and then 2nd Peter, and then 1st Peter. So we need to be in 1st Peter chapter 1, and we're going to be looking at verses 18 and 19, okay? So these are the 2 verses that we're doing. If you want to pause the video and highlight those verses, you can, or you can do it after your lesson. All right, so we're going to say these verses, and we're going to say them 3 times. This is just the 2 verses, so we're going to, we'll say the reference, say the verses, say the reference again, say the verses, reference, verses, and then we'll end with the reference, okay? So, 1 Peter 1:18 through 19. For as much as you know that ye were not redeemed with corruptible things as silver and gold from your vain conversation received by traditions from your fathers, but with the precious blood of Christ as of a lamb without blemish and without spot. 1 Peter 1:18 through 19. For as much as you know that ye were not redeemed with the corruptible things as silver and gold from your vain conversation received by tradition from your fathers, but with the precious blood of Christ as of a lamb without blemish and without spot. 1 Peter 1:18 through 19. For as much as ye know that ye were not redeemed with corruptible things as silver and gold from your vain conversation received by tradition from your fathers, but with the precious blood of Christ as of a lamb without blemish and without spot. 1 Peter 1:18 and 19. All right. So those are our new verses, and so I want you to make sure you take time. This is the very last set of verses, so it's just the 2, but know those well, and we'll do the same thing that we did with 1 John 15, 1 through 7, where you can call me or you can get a video recorded and get that sent to me or somehow. So whatever way works best for your family, for you guys, just want to let you know that those are our new verses, and that is our those are our last ones. Okay, so we were talking about how God protected David, even though David made some foolish choices and went into the land of the Philistines to live. Even though he was lying to the Philistine king, God still was watching out for him, and some bad things did happen. Remember, the city of Ziklag was burned, and all of their family members were taken. They were captured, and so they thought all was lost. But God then allowed them to find, as David turned back to God and asked him what they should do. God allowed them to find the Egyptian that was dying and help him, and then he was able to tell them that the Amalekites had taken them, and he was able to lead them to the camp, and where they were able to get everything back and even drive those, kill most of them, and drive some out and bring back the spoils of the land with them, and the goods that they had. And so God restored what was lost. So today we're going to start the story of Saul's defeat. Then you're going to have chapel tomorrow, and then Thursday we'll finish up Saul's defeat, and that'll be we'll be finishing this set of lessons on David and David in hiding, and so then we'll be moving on to our last set of lessons. So but Saul needed some advice. Remember, Saul had rejected God and had chosen to go his own way and was disobedient before God, and so God wasn't even listening to him anymore. And Samuel had died at this point, And so he couldn't even ask Samuel for advice. And he needed some advice, but he didn't know where to turn. Years before, God had commanded his people to put to death all the witches in their land. And so they had, when he first began to rule, he had obeyed God's commands. He had banished all the witches and wizards from the land and made it illegal to consult with them. But, and it is still God's will today, that we avoid dealing with witches and astrology and horoscopes, Ouija boards, anything else that has to do with evil spirits, because those are from Satan and they're not from God. And it's pretty scary, some of those things. And so, God doesn't want us to be messing with those things. And, it's not just a game. It's actually Satan that is, and demons that control those things. And it's not something to mess with. And so, because Saul was desperate, he searched out and he said, the Philistines are coming up against us, and I just don't know what to do. We're going to be defeated, I'm sure of it. And so he turns to his advisors and he says, find me a witch. Find one. There's got to be someone that hasn't given up their ways, but that I can go talk to. I need for them to bring Samuel out so that I can ask his advice. And so, Saul had fallen pretty far. This was the lowest point, I think, for him. Even though, he had tried to kill David many times and he wasn't following God. I think this was kind of his breaking point. He didn't know what else to do, and so he'd already disobeyed God in so many areas. Why would he heed God's word in this area? And so, the Israelite soldiers were at a camp by Mount Gilboa, and so the servants went out and they found a witch of Endor. Endor was a village there. And so a witch is a woman who supposedly called forth the spirits of dead people and supposedly talked to them. Saul thought that if he could just talk to Samuel, he would know how he would be ready to confront the Philistine army. So he disguised himself, and they made this journey by night so that no one would see. And so the witch was surprised with visitors, especially at night. And she was frightened because she knew that King Saul had banished all the witches long ago. And if you were caught, you would be either, you could be in lots of trouble or you could be killed. And so that was something that she knew. And so she tried to keep it quiet and didn't tell many people that she was still doing this. She claimed to bring back the spirits of dead people, but in reality, she was communicating with evil spirits which imitate the voices of those dead persons. And so when someone says that they talk to a dead person, they're really talking to the evil spirits instead. And so this time God chose to move into the situation. He made it different than the usual experience, because God allowed Samuel to truly be brought back in order to give King Saul a message. It's comforting to know that God is in control even over the devil and all evil spirits. God can do whatever he chooses. And in this case, he chose to show his power and his might to not only the witch, but to Saul and anyone else that was there with him, all of his servants. And so Samuel comes and the witch screams. She sees the form. She's used to just hearing a voice, and she sees the form of a man, and she says, "Why?" To Saul, she says, "Why have you deceived me? You are King Saul." She knows that this is King Saul because that's Samuel. And he says, don't be afraid. What did you see? I saw forms ascending out of the earth. It was like the form of an old man covered with a mantle. And so then Saul knew that this was really Samuel, the former prophet. And so Samuel says to Saul, why have you bothered me to bring me back? I am very much distressed, answered Saul, for the Philistines are making war against me, and God has left me and answers me no more. I called to you to find out what I should do. And really, he was at his wit's end. He didn't know what else to do. And Samuel says, why are you calling on me? Since the Lord has departed from you and become your enemy, the Lord has torn the kingdom from you and given it to David, as I told you, because you were disobedient. The Lord is going to let the Philistines win the battle. You and your sons will be with me tomorrow. Samuel's telling him that Saul and his sons were all going to die in the battle tomorrow. You know, it was a tragic message for Saul to hear that, yeah, he had messed up big time, and that his family, all of his sons and himself were all going to die. And because of this, he had a great fear, and he just fell to the ground because of their long journey that they had made, and he hadn't eaten very much. He was so weak physically. And because now of this fear, it paralyzed him, and he just was on the ground. And the servants tried to help him get up, and the witch tried, and they tried to get him to eat something. So she quickly made a meal, and at first he refused to eat, but finally he did eat. And then Saul and his two servants ate the food which she prepared. This strengthened them to make the long, perilous journey back to the camp during the night. And so, you know, God showed himself mighty in this situation. He showed Saul who truly is in control, that it's not evil, the evil spirits. It's not the witches that are that communicate with evil spirits. They're not powerful. God is powerful. God stepped in and allowed Samuel to send a message to Saul. Again, the same message that he's really been telling him before, that the kingdom is not yours anymore. David is going to be the new king, and there's nothing you can do about it. You and your sons are all going to die, and it will ensure that no one will be around to take the throne from David. And David would be the king, and his line would be the king in the kingly line forever. And there isn't one person that is sitting on the throne any longer, but Jesus is the king, and he is from that. We there's not someone physically there in Israel that would sit on the throne, but Jesus is their king, if they would accept him. And he's our king. He's the King of Kings. He's not just of David's kingly line, he's king above all kings. And so that's what we can learn from this, is that God is in complete control. And so I wanted to close with a song, so let me grab that. Okay, so I wanted to sing the first verse of David, the one that starts Young David, okay? I didn't put the CD player out. I'm just going to sing the song. I have the words out, so you sing with me if you know it. And if you don't remember it all, just try your best, okay? Young David was a shepherd who worshipped God in song. Goliath was a giant who boasted all day long. Young David only had a sling against the giant's sword. Goliath had his armor, but David had the Lord. Oh, put your trust in David's God and watch the giants fall. For God is bigger than giants are, and he can kill them all. Trust us learn this truth that David learned. Don't trust in spears and swords, though giants may be 10 feet tall. The battle is the Lord's. All right, I will end it there. Have a good day of classes and learn a lot. We'll see you in the next lesson.